Okay, picture this. You are standing in a dimly lit break room. You're completely exhausted, you have a massive headache, and you've just put your absolute last dollar into a vending machine.
Oh, I already know exactly where this is going.
Right. So you hit the button for your favorite snack. The machine whirs to life. The coil starts to turn. You can literally see the bag inching forward, and you are ready for that tiny hit of dopamine.
Yeah, you've already mentally eaten the chips.
Exactly. And then nothing. The coil turns exactly halfway, the bag gets wedged aggressively against the glass, and the machine just goes dead. Silent.
The worst feeling in the world.
So, what is your immediate, instinctive, primate brain reaction to that exact moment?
Well, if you're like, I don't know, roughly 99% of the human population,
Yeah.
you absolutely do not look for the tiny maintenance phone number printed on the side of the machine.
Oh, definitely not. Nobody does that.
Right. You don't calmly step back and assess the mechanical failure of the coil system. No. You grab it by the sides, you plant your feet, and you shake it.
You just violently shake it. And the worst part is maybe once in your life you did that and the snack actually dropped.
Yes. You got rewarded for it once.
Exactly. So you have this ingrained belief that brute physical force equals a mechanical fix. The next time a bag gets stuck, you shake it a little harder. You kick the bottom panel. You tilt the entire 1,000-pound machine backward, literally risking your own life for a bag of chips.
And eventually, if you step back and look at yourself, I mean, you are just violently rocking a broken machine, hoping that a better accident somehow drops out of the bottom.
Yeah.
You aren't fixing the mechanism at all. You're just applying raw frustration to a completely broken system.
That exact scenario is, it's the perfect metaphor for the absolute most common frustration you experience when you are sitting at your desk, staring at a screen and using AI.
Oh, without a doubt. We have all been there.
Yeah. You have a task you need to get done, you write a prompt, you hit enter, and the output you get back is just, well, it's just wrong. It misses the point completely, the tone is embarrassingly weird, or it's, hallucinating details that you never gave it.
And it's just making things up.
So what do? You don't diagnose the system. You jump right back into the text box and you start shaking the machine. You furiously rewrite the prompt.
Which leads to an incredibly predictable and frankly frustrating loop. You mash the regenerate button. Maybe you get a decent result once, purely by chance, so you think, oh, I'm on the right track.
Just like the chips falling.
Exactly like the chips falling. So you run it again for the next task, but then you watch the output drift. It suddenly changes in ways you never asked for. It becomes overly formal, or it starts adding weird emojis everywhere.
The sudden emoji explosion is always so jarring.
It really is. So you go back into the text box and you add more instructions. You change the tone words from professional to highly professional, but also casual. You paste in 5 more examples.
You try typing in all caps, hoping the AI will somehow hear you yelling.
Right. You're just screaming at the math. And then you add a ridiculous line at the end that says, do a really good job on this, and I'll tip you $100.
I have absolutely promised an AI a fake tip before, just out of pure desperation. I mean, it's embarrassing, but true.
It happens. But what actually happens when we do that, we just pile words on top of words, and suddenly your prompt is 3 pages long. It reads like a chaotic ransom note, but the result is somehow getting functionally worse.
Yeah, you're experiencing what system designers call prompt bloat. The prompt gets longer, but it doesn't get stronger because, well, you're just piling heavy words onto a completely unclear foundational architecture.
The technical reality we have to face when dealing with large language models is that a better accident is still not a system.
Wow, say that again. That's good.
A better accident is still not a system. When you experience prompt bloat, you are actually confusing the model's attention mechanism. You give it so many conflicting instructions, so many all-caps warnings and subjective adjectives, that the AI loses track of the core task entirely.
It's just overwhelmed.
Exactly. Rewriting prompts purely out of frustration is exactly like shoking that vending machine. It might dislodge the chips once, but it is fundamentally not a repeatable process. You are treating every single bad result like it is a prompt writing issue. But in reality, the prompt itself is only one small piece of a much larger architectural problem.
Which brings us to the core mission of our deep dive today. We are taking you on a premium orientation into what is called the prompt triage desk, straight from the curriculum at the AI Prompt Lab.
Welcome to the campus.
Yes, welcome. Now, let's be very clear about what we are doing today. We are not giving you a giant downloadable prompt pack.
Please, no more prompt packs.
Right. We aren't going to read you a list of magic phrases or secret developer codes to copy and paste into ChatGPT. And this is definitely not a tool shopping guide to convince you to buy yet another monthly subscription.
Far from it. What we are exploring today is a diagnostic module. It is a fundamental shift in how you operate. It's designed to help you stop guessing, stop shaking the machine, and start engineering real outcomes.
I love that. Start engineering real outcomes.
And the mission here is incredibly simple, but I guarantee you, if you internalize this, it changes absolutely everything about how you work with AI. The mission is this: find the broken layer before you rebuild the whole system.
Find the broken layer before you rebuild the whole system. So it's the difference between a mechanic plugging your car into a diagnostic computer to find the exact misfiring sensor versus a mechanic just hitting the engine block with a wrench and hoping the check engine light goes off.
Precisely. And to become that diagnostic mechanic for your own workflows, you have to fundamentally change how you look at the errors you're getting. To fix any broken system, whether it's a car engine, a human body, or a digital workflow, you have to stop treating the visible problem as the root issue.
That is such a vital distinction. Let's dig into that difference between the visible symptom, which is what annoys you, what makes you groan when you read the screen, and the real cause.
The cause being the weak structural layer in your prompt architecture that is actually creating that annoyance.
Exactly. Because if you only treat the symptom, the problem is always going to come back. It's exactly like painting over a yellow water stain on your living room ceiling without ever going upstairs to fix the leaky pipe in the bathroom. The ceiling looks great for exactly one day, and then the water bleeds right back through.
Let's look at how this plays out technically with AI.
Oh.
When you get a bad output, your brain registers the symptom first. Let's say you get a draft back for a social media post or an email newsletter, and your immediate reaction is, ugh, this sounds so incredibly generic.
It sounds like every other piece of AI-generated content floating around the internet.
Right, that feeling of it being generic is the visible symptom.
And the classic vending machine shaking response to that symptom is to go into the prompt box and type, make this less generic, or make it punchier, which is completely useless. You are just painting over the water stain.
Exactly. Because you are asking a mathematical probability engine to understand a highly subjective human feeling. When you say make it less generic, you are treating the symptom. The root cause, the leaky pipe in this scenario, is almost always that your target audience parameter is completely missing from the system, or your specific brand voice rules were never actually defined.
Explain the mechanism behind that for a second. Why does the AI default to sounding like a boring corporate brochure if we don't define those things?
It comes down to how these models are trained. A large language model is essentially trained on the vast expanse of the internet. It's trained on Wikipedia, corporate websites, forums, public domain books. So when you ask it a question without giving it a specific lane to drive in, without defining who it is talking to or how it should sound, it calculates the mathematical average of all the text it has ever consumed related to that topic.
And the average of the internet is pretty bland.
Inherently bland. It is the median of human thought. The AI defaults to generic because you didn't build a boundary wall to keep it away from the median.
That makes so much sense. It's not trying to bore you, it's just reverting to the safest statistical mean. Let's look at a visual example from our sources, because this happens with image generation all the time.
Oh, constantly.
Let's say you own an AI photo booth company and you are preparing a digital activation for a massive corporate event. You need to pitch the client on the visual style, so you run a prompt in Midjourney or a similar tool, and the image comes out looking absolutely amazing.
You have this perfect, moody, luxury editorial vibe.
Exactly. You think, great, I've got it. You run the exact same prompt again to get a second option. And this time, the style completely changes. The lighting is blown out. The texture of the skin looks plastic. The background is entirely different. The symptom you are experiencing is the image looks good once, but the style drifts and changes every single time I run it.
And if we look for the cause there, it's that the visual style or the deterministic lighting rules were left completely undefined in the prompt architecture. You relied on pure statistical luck the first time.
Right. You rolled a 20 on a 20-sided die.
Exactly. The prompt probably used incredibly broad subjective words like luxury or cinematic. But cinematic means 1,000 different things in the model's latent space. It could mean a Michael Bay explosion, or it could mean a moody black and white indie film.
Because you didn't define the wardrobe materials, the directional lighting behavior, the depth of field, or the absolute deal breakers.
Right, because the boundaries were open, the AI just rolled the massive multidimensional dice again.
You got a lucky roll the first time, and you mistook luck for a system. I see this happen constantly with digital product builders too. Here is a scenario. You are building a new course or a template, and you ask the AI to write in the sales page for it.
Okay, a very common task.
Right. You read the output, and on the surface, it flows beautifully. The grammar is flawless. It uses incredibly persuasive power words. It sounds incredibly polished. But when you look closely, it doesn't actually explain what the buyer is getting. It doesn't articulate the offer.
It's just a wall of marketing hype.
Exactly. The symptom is a highly polished, nice-sounding page that will absolutely fail to convert a single sale.
The root cause in that scenario is almost always a failure in the input layer. You have to remember, the AI doesn't inherently know your business. It doesn't know the psychological profile of your specific buyer. It doesn't know what digital assets are included in the zip file they're downloading. And it doesn't know your refund policy boundaries.
It's flying blind.
Completely. Because it only has incredibly thin source material to work from, it experiences a vacuum. And large language models abhor a vacuum. To fulfill your request to write a sales page, it fills those informational gaps with generic marketing fluff. It generates text that sounds structurally plausible to a human ear, but it is completely hollow.
It isn't true or specific to your actual business reality. I want to share one more example because this one is running rampant right now. You have an idea to build a custom GPT, a dedicated, personalized assistant inside ChatGPT. You want it to be your ultimate, all-knowing business manager.
Oh boy, I see where this is going.
You know it. So you open the builder and you tell it to write your emails, analyze your financial spreadsheets, act as your personal therapist, and code a new website for you.
A recipe for disaster.
You try to use it, and the output is a total unmitigated disaster. It forgets instructions, it does things out of order, it tries to code your therapy sessions. The symptom you feel is, my custom GPT is a complete mess, and it's too confusing to use.
That happens because the container hasn't been given one singular primary task. The root cause is a massive failure in defining the goal. You tried to force one system to execute 12 entirely unrelated jobs without defining the required inputs or the structured output format for any of them.
In the language of systems design, you didn't build an assistant, you built a junk drawer.
And when you reach into a junk drawer, you are going to pull out tangled cords and stray batteries, not a precision tool.
So when we synthesize all of this, what does it mean for you listening right now? It boils down to a single, powerful diagnostic question that you need to ask yourself every single time an AI output frustrates you. You should literally write this on a sticky note and put it on your monitor. Are you ready?
It's the most important question of the day.
What job was this output supposed to do, and which layer failed first?
That is the turning point. Notice what the question is not. The question is not, how do I make this output better? That is the wrong question entirely, because make it better is impossibly vague. Better for who? Better in what format? Better by what metric?
You have to define the job, and then you have to isolate the architectural layer that cracked under pressure.
Exactly.
Okay, but if I'm supposed to ask myself which layer failed, I kind of need to know what the layers actually are. I mean, I need a blueprint of the house before I can find the leaky pipe. So let's open up this framework.
Let's do it.
Inside the AI Prompt Lab's triage methodology, there is a blueprint. They have mapped out 9 distinct failure layers that exist in literally any AI system, whether it's a simple text prompt or a complex automation. If you understand these 9 layers, you completely stop guessing.
Let's walk through the map. Layer number 1 is the goal. The goal layer is the steering wheel. It controls the specific job the AI is supposed to execute. A weak goal gives the AI a broad topic to ponder. For example, a weak goal is write about AI tools. That is an invitation to ramble.
It's the difference between telling a contractor, build me a place to live, versus build me a 3-bedroom craftsman house with a wraparound porch.
Exactly. If the symptom you are experiencing is that the output entirely misses the point, like it gives you a high-level philosophical explanation, instead of the practical checklist you actually needed, your goal layer is broken.
So what's the fix?
The first fix here isn't to add tone words. The fix is to restate the task clearly, usually in a single undeniable sentence. Instead of write about AI tools, your new goal becomes create a step-by-step diagnostic checklist for a photo booth owner that helps them troubleshoot an AI portrait activation so they can reduce their client revision rate.
Notice how dense that single sentence is. It gives the system a job, a specific user, a specific topic, and a usable outcome.
That leads us directly to layer 2, context. Context controls where and why the output is actually going to be used in the real world. Without context, AI operates in a void. It assumes the output exists purely for its own sake.
And the symptom of a broken context layer is advice that feels insultingly obvious, right? Or an output that reads like a bland high school book report that could apply to absolutely anyone on Earth.
Yes, I see this when people ask for marketing advice. They get back bullet points like leverage social media and understand your target demographic.
And you think, I've been in business for 10 years, I know I need to use social media. The AI isn't stupid, it just lacks context.
The fix is to inject the environment into the prompt. You tell the AI, this document will be used as a supplementary lesson inside a private school community. Or you say, this will be the primary copy on a Gumroad digital storefront. When you give it the environment, it shapes the output to fit the room.
The room dictates the acoustic resonance of the message. I like that. So what's layer 3?
Layer 3 is audience. Audience controls exactly who the output is intended for. This layer dictates the tone, the depth of technical detail, the baseline assumptions, and the language level.
If the symptom you are feeling is that the tone is completely wrong, maybe it's talking down to your reader like they are a total beginner, or conversely, it's using dense academic jargon that will alienate your buyers, your audience layer has failed.
It's the curse of knowledge. As creators, we often forget how much we know, and we assume the AI knows who we are talking to. The fix here is to draw a hyper-specific perimeter around your reader. Don't just say, this is for business owners.
Right, because a bakery owner and a sauce founder are very different.
Exactly. Say, this is for a mid-level B2B service provider who actively uses AI to write their client emails, but fundamentally doesn't understand why their outputs feel inconsistent and robotic. When you do that, the AI immediately adjusts the complexity of its explanation. It stops defining what a prompt is and starts discussing workflow consistency.
Which brings us to layer 4, which is arguably where the most catastrophic failures happen, the input layer. Input controls the raw source material the AI uses to do its work.
AI is historically incredible at organizing, refining, formatting, and synthesizing information that you provide to it. But if you provide it with nothing and demand an outcome, it will simply invent things to please you.
Because it hates a vacuum. If the symptom is that the AI is hallucinating features about your product, making up case study statistics, or staying maddeningly vague, your input layer is starved.
The fix is that you have to provide the raw clay before you ask it to sculpt the statue. You have to paste in your messy brain dump notes, your old client transcripts, your rough lesson outlines, or examples of your previous writing.
You cannot ask the machine to summarize a meeting if you don't give it the transcript of the meeting.
Precisely. You feed the system the facts, and you let it handle the formatting. Layer 5 is style. Style controls the voice, the mood, the visual direction, and the overarching brand feel.
And the most common mistake users make here is believing that throwing in an adjective like professional, premium, or engaging constitutes a style system.
Those words are completely subjective. They're starting points, not systems. If the symptom is that the output is technically accurate, but it feels completely off-brand, overly hyped up, or just doesn't sound like you, the style layer failed.
This is where you have to get incredibly granular. The fix is to add specific, measurable style rules. You tell it to be direct, practical, and highly systems-focused. But more importantly, you have to tell it what its bad habits are.
Yes, negative style constraints are huge. You tell it, do not use corporate brochure language, avoid internet slang, and absolutely do not use fake scarcity or urgency.
Which transitions perfectly into layer 6 constraints. Think of constraints as the guardrails on a mountain road. They control the absolute boundaries of the task. They explicitly tell the AI what must happen, and critically, what absolutely cannot happen under any circumstances.
If your output consistently includes unwanted elements, if it wanders off into a totally different topic, or if it makes wild guarantees that you would legally never stand behind, you have a massive constraints failure.
I had this happen recently. I asked an AI to help me outline a brief 10-minute deep dive segment, and it gave me a script that would have taken 3 hours to read. It didn't fail at the ideas, it failed at the boundaries.
The fix is to build a literal must-include list and a must-avoid list. For example, must avoid making definitive financial claims, must avoid referencing competing tools by name, and must avoid generic motivational fluff. You build fences.
Layer 7 is format. Format controls the physical shape and structure of the final output you receive. If your symptom is that the output is an absolute nightmare to copy and paste into your email provider, or the really useful insights are buried inside massive, unreadable blocks of text, Your format layer broke.
Oh, I hate that. When it
Ah,
gives you a sprawling essay instead of a simple list.
yes. I used to ask for content calendars, and it would just give me paragraphs about what I should post on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I couldn't read it. I didn't need to change the ideas. I just needed to specify the shape.
Instead of saying, give me some content ideas, the fix is to say, give me a clean, structured markdown table. Column 1 is the hook, column 2 is the core lesson, and column 3 is the call to action. You dictate the geometry of the result.
Layer 8 is the quality standard. This layer controls how success will ultimately be judged. This is a subtle one, but if you look at an output and you honestly cannot tell whether it worked, or you find yourself rejecting the draft over and over, but you can't articulate exactly why it bothers you, you are missing a quality standard.
You've not defined what done looks like. The fix here is that before you ever generate the output, you must define the criteria for a strong result versus an unusable result. We will explore this deeply in a moment because it is the linchpin of the whole system.
And finally, Layer 9 Toolfit. This is the reality check layer. Toolfit controls the actual technological capability. Sometimes you can build an absolutely flawless prompt architecture, you nail the context, the constraints, the input, but the output still fails completely.
The symptom is constant, frustrating instability despite having a great system.
When that happens, the fix might simply be that you are holding the wrong tool. You cannot use a basic text-only chatbot to solve a complex, multi-layered visual image testing problem. You cannot expect a one-off text prompt to replace a structured, automated database.
You change tools when the job truly requires a mechanical capability your current software simply does not possess. You can't use a hammer to drive a screw, no matter how perfectly you swing it.
Okay, I want to pause the orientation right here because if I'm listening to this and I just heard us rattle off 9 distinct layers, goal, context, audience, input, style, constraints, format, quality standard, and toolfit, I might be experiencing a mild panic attack.
It sounds like a lot of work for one prompt.
Right. I'm thinking, wait, if I just need to generate a quick email to my team about a schedule change, do I seriously need to run a 9-point diagnostic checklist? That sounds completely exhausting. It would take me longer to write the prompts than to just write the email myself. Are we completely overcomplicating the daily reality of using AI?
It is a totally valid concern, and the answer is absolutely not. You do not use this map for every single tiny interaction. If you are asking a chatbot for a recipe for chicken soup, you don't need a 9-layer architecture.
Thank goodness.
This framework is specifically for when a repeatable, valuable output breaks. And more importantly, when you do use the map, you do not revise 5 layers at once. That is the massive, chaotic mistake people make.
Oh, totally. They see a bad output, they panic, and they rewrite the goal, they change the audience description, they add 3 new constraints, and then they switch from ChatGPT to Claude all at the exact same time.
Exactly. And when you change everything at once, you learn absolutely nothing. You have no idea which of those 4 changes actually improves the result or which one made it worse.
It's like deciding you want to get healthy, so on the exact same day, you go on a keto diet, you start waking up at 4 a.m., you start taking 10 new supplements, and you run a marathon. 2 weeks later, you have more energy, but you have no clue if it was the sleep, the diet, or the running. You can't replicate the success because you didn't isolate the variables.
Precisely. The prompt failure map is a scientific diagnostic tool to help you isolate the first weak layer. Here is the actual workflow. You read the bad output without editing anything. You name the visible symptom. Then, you look at the 9 layers and ask which single layer appears to have failed first. You make one targeted revision to that specific layer, and you test again. You document what changed. It's a controlled, methodical process, not a chaotic guessing game.
Let's shift gears because you touched on something a minute ago in Layer 8, the quality standard, that I think is the most profound mindset shift in this entire framework. You've identified the broken layer, maybe you realize your style instructions were vague, or you forgot to provide the input data. But before you go back to the text box, before you ask the AI to regenerate the result, you have to clearly define what success actually looks like in the real world.
This is the critical step that almost every single user skips. They write a prompt, they get an output, and then they sit back and judge that output entirely by their mood, their personal taste in that exact moment, or their level of panic about a deadline. In the language of the AI prompt lab, they are judging the AI by vibes.
Judging by vibes. I absolutely love how the source material frames this rule. It says, vibes are allowed in the room. They are not allowed to drive the car. That is so incredibly accurate.
It is the downfall of most creative workflows. When you judge a result purely by vibes, you end up giving the AI feedback that sounds like an overly demanding art director. You type, make it better, or make it pop, or make it sound a little more like me.
Which is just useless feedback for a machine.
Completely mechanically useless to a language model. Better is a constantly moving target. The AI cannot mathematically aim at a subjective target you never defined, so it just guesses. It changes random variables, you react emotionally to the new guess, you give another vague instruction, the workflow gets 10 times longer, and the output rarely gets fundamentally stronger.
I want to ground this in a real-world analogy. It is exactly like hiring a human assistant for your business. Imagine you hire a bright, eager new assistant. You hand them a messy, unorganized folder of your random meeting notes, and you say, hey, draft a really good document out of this. And then you walk away.
You are setting them up to fail.
2 hours later, they bring you back a spreadsheet. And you get mad. You say, no, I wanted a slide deck. Whose fault is that? It's yours. Because their definition of a good document and your unstated definition of a good document were completely different.
If you want a usable asset, you would tell that human assistant exactly what the document needs to achieve, who is going to read it in the upcoming meeting, what specific sections it must have, and what specific mistakes would cause you to throw it in the trash.
That level of explicit delegation is exactly what building an output standard is. It is establishing the definitive review criteria for your AI result before it is ever generated. It replaces subjective vibes with an objective mathematical target. And just like the failure map we just went through, the output standard has its own stack of specific layers, 8 layers to be exact, that help you construct this target so the AI knows exactly what bullseye to hit.
Let's walk through this standard stack.
Yeah.
How do we build a target that permanently bans the vibes from the driver's seat? Layer 1 of the standard is the output job. You have to define the practical, real-world utility of the output.
Right. Must this document teach a total beginner how to troubleshoot their software? Must it take a chaotic 10-minute audio rant and distill it into 5 distinct social media assets? If the job is vague, the result drifts.
Layer 2 is the use context. Where physically or digitally is this output going to live?
A lesson that lives inside a structured, private school community course needs a very different pacing, formatting, and tone than a highly aggressive public Facebook ad or a Gumroad product sales page. The environment changes the required standard of quality.
Layer 3 is the audience. Who is actually going to look at this, read it, judge it, or take action based on it? You have to know the stakes. Is this for a casual beginner who is just exploring a topic for fun? Or is it for an educated, highly skeptical buyer who is actively deciding whether a $500 digital product is worth putting on their credit card?
The audience dictates the assumptions the AI is allowed to make, which leads to layer 4, the style direction. What should the experience of consuming this output feel, sound, or look like?
And remember, our rule about vibes, this must be defined objectively. Do not just say professional. Professional to a lawyer is different than professional to a graphic designer.
Define it. The style must be clear, direct, highly systems-focused, and calm. It must actively avoid hype and corporate brochure wording. If you are doing visual generation, this is where you lock in your color lane, your directional lighting, your composition rules, and your texture constraints.
Layer 5 is the must-include list, the absolute required elements. This creates a structural checklist that protects the output from omitting the most critical information.
For an educational module, the standard might say, must include a clear lesson promise at the top, one immediate action step at the bottom, a defined completion standard, and a legal disclosure note. If one is missing, the output fails.
Layer 6 is the inverse, the must-avoid list. These are your boundaries and deal breakers. This is crucial for protecting your brand safety and your sanity. You define the poison.
Avoid generic AI hype words like revolutionize or delve. Avoid making specific income promises. Avoid generating images with distorted hands or text. Avoid any unlicensed pop culture brand references.
You define exactly what would make this output legally or morally unusable for your business, which perfectly sets up the final evaluation metrics. Layer 7. Strong result signals. This is how you will know you succeeded. What are the positive, objective proof points?
Instead of saying it feels good, you define it. A strong result is formatted in clean Markdown. It is easy to paste directly into our platform without requiring me to reformat any headers, and it produces exactly one highly practical action for the learner.
And the absolute final layer of the stack, layer 8, unusable result signals. What specific criteria makes the result an automatic failure? What are your hard rejection conditions?
An unusable result is one that provides vague motivational theory instead of a concrete task, or one that skips the completion standard checklist entirely. If you do not define the unusable result before you start, you run the massive risk of accepting something that looks highly polished on the surface but completely fails to do the job.
I want to apply this entire stack to a deeply practical scenario, a use case straight from the lab's documentation. Let's say you want to use AI to take a messy, frustrating administrative task that you do every week, and you want to turn it into an SOP, a standard operating procedure, so you can finally hand it off to an employee.
Okay, if we use the old, weak, vibe-based request, we just paste some notes into the chat and say, make this into an SOP.
And we know exactly what happens next. The AI spits out something that looks incredibly organized. It has Roman numerals, it has bold headers, it has perfectly aligned bullet points. You feel a rush of productivity.
But then, a week later, you hand that beautiful document to a brand new team member, and they instantly get stuck. They can't actually execute the task because the document is missing all the nuanced real-world context, the passwords, the edge case decision trees. It looks like an SOP, but it functions like a paperweight.
But watch what happens if we build the output standard stack first. We define the job, turn a messy repeated task into a highly executable step-by-step SOP. The context. It will be housed in our company wiki and used independently by a remote team member.
The audience, a new hire who needs to complete the task flawlessly without stopping to ask the business owner to explain every minor detail. The style, extremely clear, plain language, strictly operational.
Must include required software tools, the specific task owner, estimated timing, decision tree points, and a strict definition of done. Must avoid unexplained acronyms, assumptions of prior historical knowledge, and the hidden technical steps.
And then you lock in the evaluation criteria, the success standard. A strong result literally allows someone else in the company to complete the task correctly from start to finish without asking the creator a single clarifying question. The failure standard. An unusable result looks highly organized on the page, but still requires the business owner to hop on a Zoom call to explain the steps verbally.
That is a night and day paradigm-shifting difference. You have given the AI an exact, mathematically precise bullseye to hit. By defining that standard, you turn a piece of AI-generated text into an actual valuable delegation asset that saves your company time. It forces you to sell absolute clarity to yourself first, instead of just chasing good vibes.
And there's a very subtle but very common trap people fall into here, right? They diligently define the style, they tell the AI to be clear, direct, and premium, but they completely forget to define the functional success.
Exactly. They define how the output feels, but not how it functions. You need both. An SOP that feels premium but doesn't explain the software login process is a failed standard.
Okay, this is brilliant. We have diagnosed the visible symptom, we have mapped the architecture and found the exact failure layer. We have banned the vibes and built a rock-solid, objective output standard. Now we are arriving at a massive fork in the road, because now that the standard is set, you have to decide what kind of digital vessel this AI task actually belongs in.
A perfect, well-architected prompt is going to fail completely if it is trapped in the wrong container. This is a tremendous bottleneck for advanced users. They get completely paralyzed by what the lab calls container chaos or tool chaos.
They keep trying to furiously rewrite a single text prompt inside a basic chat window when what the complexity of their task actually requires is a multi-step automated workflow.
Or, conversely, they try to package and sell a prompt pack to their audience before they have even proven they have a repeatable, reliable system. You have to stop and ask, based on the standard I just built, what physical kind of system does this job actually need to survive in the wild?
Let's pull the listener out of that container chaos. The curriculum outlines 5 distinct possible solution containers. I want to walk through the physics of each one so you know exactly which box to put your problem in. Container number 1 is the simplest, the prompt.
A prompt is the baseline instruction you give an AI to produce a specific contained output. You choose the prompt container when the job is highly defined, the required input data is relatively simple, and you just need one usable result right now.
Like rewriting a single client email, drafting a quick caption for a photo, or summarizing a 3-page PDF document. If the task does not require long-term memory, it doesn't require complex sequential steps, and it doesn't need to act as a dedicated persona-driven assistant, then a finely tuned single prompt is usually exactly the right container.
It's the right tool for a one-off job. But what happens when the job gets bigger? That leads us to container number 2, the workflow. A workflow is a repeatable, structured sequence of steps.
You graduate from a prompt to a workflow when the task happens repeatedly or when the sheer complexity of the task requires a defined process before, during, and after the AI generates its output. Explain this in terms of the AI's attention mechanism, because I think people don't realize why big prompts fail. Why can't I just put a massive process into one prompt?
Because of how context windows and attention mechanisms function in large language models, if you paste a massive 10,000-word transcript into a chat, and in a single prompt you ask the AI to extract the 5 main themes, write 3 different newsletters targeting 3 different audiences, generate 10 tweets, and read a summary for my team, you are absolutely overloading the model's attention.
It will spread its processing power too thin. The newsletters will sound identical, the tweets will be generic, and the summary will miss the point. It's like asking a chef to cook a 5-course meal in a single pan all at the exact same time. It's going to turn into a mushy stew.
Exactly. A workflow solves this by breaking the process apart. Step 1. Use a prompt to extract the themes. Review the themes. Step 2. Take the approved themes and use a new prompt to write newsletter 1. Review it.
These tasks involve human decision points, review cycles, handoffs, and quality checks. A single prompt cannot hold all of that logic reliably. You need a workflow.
That makes perfect sense. Break it down to preserve the quality. Container number 3 is the custom GPT. And here is where I have a major foundational question for you.
Lay it on me.
Why does it seem like absolutely everyone in the business world wants to jump straight to building a custom GPT for every minor inconvenience in their life? It feels like the ultimate shiny object syndrome right now.
It is absolutely the shiny object of the current era. People have this fantasy that a custom GPT will just magically become an autonomous employee that runs their entire business while they sleep. But functionally, a custom GPT is specifically designed to be a dedicated assistant built around one highly focused job.
You use the custom GPT container when the exact same kind of complex task needs to happen repeatedly, and the assistant requires strict, permanent system instructions, firm behavioral boundaries, constant access to reference files, and a highly consistent output formatting rule.
Think of a dedicated brand voice assistant that only writes LinkedIn posts, or an assistant whose only job is to audit your prompts against the 9 failure layers. So, what is the ultimate danger when people try to rush this?
The danger is the junk drawer phenomenon we discussed earlier. People get excited, and they try to build a single GPT that writes their social media, answers angry client support tickets, builds complex product sales pages, and acts as a sounding board for their launch strategy.
That is a junk drawer with 12 completely unrelated operational jobs. When you do that, the underlying system instructions become inherently conflicted. The assistant gets confused about its identity, its behavior becomes vague and erratic, and it ultimately fails at every single task you give it.
A powerful custom GPT has one primary undeniable function. Let it be great at one thing, not terrible at 12 things. Container number 4, the product.
A product is a packaged, deliverable asset that helps a specific external buyer complete a specific job in their own life or business. You choose the product container when you realize that the AI system you have built to solve your own bottleneck is actually highly useful beyond your own personal workflow, and you can deliver it to the market as a paid template, a diagnostic kit, a mini course, or a robust resource pack.
But there is a massive, flashing red warning light here. Right?
Yeah.
Because we see this constantly online. People build a product too early. The critical warning is this: a commercial product should absolutely never be built entirely out of one lucky output.
Right. Just because you mashed the keyboard and wrote a prompt that happened to generate a fantastic high-converting sales page for your own specific course does not mean you can just slap a price tag on that prompt and sell it as a $1,000,000 sales page prompt.
Exactly, because that prompt only worked within the invisible context of your specific business. An external buyer needs infinitely more than just the raw text of the prompt. If you are selling a product, the buyer needs the surrounding architecture.
They need to know exactly when to use it, what specific input data they must provide to make it work for their niche, how to objectively judge the output using a standard, and what troubleshooting instructions to follow when the AI inevitably hallucinates. It requires deep educational packaging.
The integrity of the system decides the container, not the hype of the market. And that brings us to the final container, number 5, a different toolpath. This container is the ultimate reality check.
This is the path you take when you realize that the software tool you are currently using physically cannot execute the job at the standard you require, no matter how architecturally perfect your prompt is. It's recognizing the limits of the physics.
If you need highly accurate, source-based academic research with properly formatted citations and deep file organization, but you are stubbornly trying to force a basic, highly creative writing chatbot to do it, you are going to fail. The bot is designed to be creative, not to be a filing cabinet.
You might need to route to an automation tool like Zapier, a dedicated image generation platform like Midjourney, or a vector database knowledge base. You change tools when the job truly requires a mechanical capability your current software lacks. You do not change tools just to avoid the hard work of defining the problem.
Let's apply this container ladder to a real-world creator. Look at a standard content creator. They have one big, passionate idea. Maybe it's a 10-minute rant they recorded on podcast. They want to take that audio and turn it into 5 social posts, 2 email newsletters, and a community discussion question.
Their immediate reactive instinct is almost always, I need to buy a better content repurposing prompt.
But if we apply the diagnostic framework, the better diagnosis is that this is absolutely workflow. Repurposing content is not a single action. It is a series of repeatable, highly dependent steps.
You must first extract the core logical arguments, then define the specific audience for the specific platform, then choose the formatting constraints, then adapt the emotional angle, then check the result against the brand voice guardrails, and finally format it for the specific UI of the platform.
A single text prompt is far too fragile to hold all of that logic reliably. They need to map a workflow first. And then, maybe, eventually, if that workflow becomes a rigid weekly engine, they can encapsulate it into a custom GPT.
I love the concept of the container ladder. You have to earn the right to move up. You step up from proving one solid result with a prompt to organizing a repeatable process with a workflow to delegating it to a dedicated custom GPT assistant to finally packaging it as a commercial product.
And you absolutely must climb those steps in order. Build the prompt first. If you find yourself using it repeatedly and successfully, build a workflow around it. If that workflow becomes heavy and needs an automated assistant, build the GPT. If others in your industry desperately need it, package the product. Do not leap straight to the top of the ladder or the system will collapse under its own weight.
All right, we are rounding the final corner into the last phase of the triage process, choosing your next module. This is the routing phase of the campus. Let's recap where we are. You've diagnosed the symptom instead of just treating it. You've used the 9-point map to locate the exact broken layer.
You've banned the subjective vibes and built a mathematically sound output standard. And you've picked the appropriate digital container for the solution.
The absolute final step is navigating the learning campus to actually go build the permanent fix. This phase is where the concept of strategic sequencing becomes paramount. If you talk to people using AI, their primary emotion isn't usually excitement. It's deep, paralyzing overwhelm.
That overwhelm usually stems from treating every new tool, every flashy template, and every YouTube tutorial as equally urgent. You see a new video about a complex AI voice automation, and you drop whatever vital task you were doing to go watch it and play with the software.
The issue there isn't that you are curious. Curiosity is a superpower. The issue is unsequenced curiosity. Unsequenced curiosity means your knowledge never actually compounds into leverage. I have to call out this specific imagery from the source text because it is so incredibly vivid and accurate.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
It describes this state as wandering through the whole campus like a lost Victorian ghost with a Canva tab open. I can visualize that perfectly. You are just floating around the internet, looking at shiny things, opening a dozen tabs, starting a dozen projects, but never actually finishing a single load-bearing system for your business.
It is the ultimate productivity trap. To stop being that ghost, to actually ground yourself, you have to ruthlessly follow the bottleneck rule. When you're standing at the triage desk, you must choose exactly one next learning module based strictly on the specific structural failure layer you just diagnosed.
You do not choose based on what sounds the most exciting or what the current trending topic on Twitter is. You have to surgically fix the exact bottleneck that is currently blocking your very next useful output.
So let's look at how this routing works in practice across the AI Prompt Lab curriculum. What if I run the diagnostic and I realize that my foundational prompt structure is just weak? My goals are vague, I never provide context, and my constraints are basically non-existent.
If that is your diagnosis, then your bottleneck is your core engineering capability. Your specific route is to start with their foundational module APL 101 Prompt Foundations. That is where you learn to pour the concrete for a strong system. You don't try to build a GPT. You bring your single week prompt and your newly defined output standard into that room, and you rebuild the foundation from the ground up.
What if my problem is entirely in the visual realm? Say I'm that photo booth owner we deconstructed earlier. My generated images are beautiful, but they drift constantly. The artistic style changes. The lighting becomes totally inconsistent across a batch, and I fundamentally cannot use these unpredictable outputs for professional client pitch decks.
Then you absolutely do not need to sit through a module on writing business operations SOPs, and you don't need a module on text-based custom GPTs. Your explicit bottleneck is visual deterministic consistency. You need to route directly to the AI Photo and Visual Systems track, specifically APL 201 AI Photo Systems Lab, or perhaps APL 205 Prompt Testing Grid.
You take one highly specific visual use case, like generating a consistent corporate activation mockup, and you fix the architectural rules for that one single workflow.
Let's do one more. What if my triage diagnosis points directly to messy internal business operations? Let's say I'm doing the exact same tedious administrative tasks every single week. All the vital process knowledge is trapped inside my own head, and my client onboarding experience is an absolute chaotic disaster.
Then your bottleneck is operational leverage. You don't need a prompt writing class, you need systems engineering. You route to APL 301 AI Business Systems or APL 310 SOP Systems Lab. But even there, you apply the rule of one.
You do not attempt to use AI to systemize your entire business in a single weekend. You bring one specific, highly repeated process that desperately needs to be delegated, like your client onboarding checklist, and you build the AI standard for that single process.
The overriding emphasis here, the word that should be echoing in your mind, is the word one. Choose one module, not three, not the entire curriculum track, just one. Make a clean, highly strategic upgrade decision.
You only upgrade your AI systems or your personal training when you can explicitly say out loud, I know exactly what my current bottleneck is, I know exactly which module addresses it, and I know exactly what practical real-world output I intend to build inside that module.
That is the gold standard of intentional learning. If you cannot name the exact tangible output you want to create next, you are not genuinely ready to move forward. You are just browsing the internet. The entire architecture of the prompt triage desk is designed to give you a definitive route, a single, highly leveraged next action that will actually move the needle for your life or your business.
Which brings us to the end of our orientation. We have covered a massive foundational amount of ground today, navigating the deep structural architecture of how AI systems actually function, fail, and succeed. I want to pull all of this together into a cohesive story for you. Let's walk through a hypothetical scenario that proves you now know exactly how to navigate this campus.
Let's hear it.
Imagine it's a random Tuesday afternoon. You are sitting at your desk, and you are trying to use AI to generate a vital piece of content. Let's say it's a welcome email sequence for your new digital product. You run the prompt, and the result is terrible. It sounds robotic, it's overly formal, and it completely fails to explain the value of the product.
In the past, you would have panicked. You would have grabbed the vending machine, you would have typed, make it punchier, and wasted an hour of your life.
But not today. Today, you engage the triage system. Step one, you stop. You pick this one failing AI output to focus on. You don't try to fix your whole marketing strategy, you just look at this email sequence.
Step two, you name the visible symptom out loud. You say, the symptom is that this email sounds like a generic corporate brochure and it doesn't actually explain my product.
Step three, you pull out the failure map. You realize this isn't a goal failure. It knew it was writing an email. But you look at the input layer and the style layer. You realize you never actually fed the AI your product's sales page as input, and you never defined your brand's conversational style. You found the leaky pipe.
Step four, before you fix it, you ban the vibes. You build your output standard. You define that the job is to welcome a new buyer. The audience is someone who just spent money and needs reassurance. The style must be warm, direct, and conversational. It must include the login link and the first action step. It must avoid upselling them immediately. And the success standard is an email you can copy and paste directly into MailChimp without editing the tone.
Step five, you look at the containers. Does this need a massive custom GPT? No. It's a clear, repeatable process. You decide this needs a workflow container. Step one will be feeding the product info. Step two will be generating the draft.
And finally, step six, you route yourself. You realize your bottleneck is foundational prompt structure, so you route to the Prompt Foundations module, bringing this exact email workflow with you to fix it permanently.
That narrative right there is the difference between being a victim of AI randomness and being the architect of a reliable system. You move from frustration to absolute clarity. As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a deeper, perhaps significantly more provocative thought to chew on as you go back to your desk. We have spent this entire time talking about the mechanics of how to diagnose and fix AI outputs.
But consider this perspective. What if your recurring, messy, frustrating AI outputs aren't actually pointing to a problem with your technical prompting skills at all?
This is the ultimate paradigm shift for business owners and creators. When an AI constantly gives you generic, confused, or wildly unhelpful results, it is very often simply holding up a mirror to a fundamental lack of clarity in your own underlying business strategy.
If the AI doesn't seem to know who your specific audience is, maybe it is because you haven't clearly defined your audience yet. If the AI cannot articulate the unique value of your digital product's offer, maybe it's because your offer itself is inherently vague and undefined.
Oh, that is incredibly powerful. The AI isn't broken. It's just a brutally honest reflection of the structural gaps in your own foundational strategy.
Precisely. We are so quick to blame the tool, but the tool only processes the clarity that we provide. Fixing the AI output by forcing yourself to sit down and explicitly define the goal, the context, the audience parameters, and the absolute standard of success, that rigorous intellectual exercise might just be the exact key to fixing the structural gaps in your actual business model. You aren't just engineering prompts in a text box, you are engineering absolute business clarity.
So, the very next time you find yourself standing in front of that metaphorical digital vending machine and your desired outcome gets stuck against the glass, do not just grab the sides and start shaking it violently. Do not just blindly type more angry words in all caps, hoping for a better accident to fall into your lap. Step back. Look closely at the mechanics. Diagnose the broken layer. Define exactly what success looks like in objective terms, and systematically build an architecture that delivers that result every single time. Stop shaking the machine and start engineering the outcome.